Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about something interesting. And I had read a recent report which McKinsey published in 2024 on 5 trends in the health and wellness space. In this report, 58% of US respondents said they were prioritizing wellness as a category in 2024. Now the real question is why now? Why not after the pandemic? But either way, when they were surveyed, they said there were 5 trends which really meant something to them. And interestingly, McKinsey surveyed 5,000 respondents across the US, the United Kingdom, and China, so industrialized nations which had access to far-reaching technology. Now the tricky part about this is that I don't know if all of this data can be extrapolated to the Indian situation, because our situation is slightly different, but we'll talk about that and you'll tell me in the comments below. So thank you for joining me. Welcome to the channel and I hope you enjoy. Hey guys, Dr. Nene here. I practice as a cardiothoracic, vascular, and general surgeon, and I'm now a health tech innovator who wants to improve lifespans and lifestyles. So stay healthy, stay curious, and keep watching. Trend number 1, health at home. After COVID-19, everyone wanted their test kits for COVID so they could test at home. They didn't have to send it to a lab and end up having someone come and collect it and have delays, as well as cost increases. And so 24% of consumers in the US said they would want to test for certain things at home. Over 35% of them in China wanted to replace some of the outside diagnostic tests and have them done at home. And these could range from simple things like flu versus the cold, or it could be for mineral or vitamin deficiencies, or it could be for other things for kids. Now the interesting part is tests on a chip and ELISA-based studies, which are commonly done for COVID, can now be done for other types of diseases. What does this really mean for the companies and for the consumers? The first is that for consumers, they get everything done at home and they don't have to go out to get it done. The second is the companies have to price it appropriately. And so they have to produce it in large enough quantities and have it readily available through supply chain to the consumer. The third is, what do you do with this information? It's always what I say with the watches and the other devices that collect data. No one really knows what it means. For that matter, sometimes the doctors don't. But in the case of diagnostic home at health or health at home testing diagnostic kits, we should know how to interpret them and how to treat them. Some of this might be solved by generative AI and by feedback loops used through different applications, which are now readily available, whether it's a health app for one of the technology companies like Apple or Google or Amazon, or whether it's a separate standalone individualized app which takes that data and then applies it. The second part is the feedback loops have to be continuous. When do you test? Why do you test? And what do you do with that information? Meaning, do you take that information and do you apply it? Remember, health at home is great so long as it's used for the appropriate reasons, but you shouldn't, like a doctor's office, order tests willy-nilly just because you think that this thing needs to be done. Instead, what should be happening is the test should be ordered only when and if you need them. But it is an exciting direction. So that's trend number 1. Trend number 2 in health and wellness is biomonitoring. What this basically applies to is these complicated watches, rings, sensors, and other things which are becoming readily available, and they are corroborated against gold standards so that you know exactly what's going on. And so the 2 areas which were done were with heart rate monitors, and then later with saturation monitors, then later with temperature monitors, and now also with sleep monitors. I think the hurdles which were there before in terms of battery life, in terms of sensor packages, have more or less been jumped over. But even more than that, what do we do with this information through the feedback loops? But what it means for companies is, as these sensors get more sophisticated, they need to be tied into the medical network so that doctors and care providers can take advantage of that. Secondly, we need to know what to do with that data. And while sleep and heart rate and some of the other heart rhythm positions are solved, there's even more areas where we can look at. One is with weight. and BMI and capacitance scales. Another is with indwelling glucose monitors to tell you in diabetics what your sugar is at any given time and the area under the curve to see if your medications you're taking are adequate or inadequate and what you're eating is adequate or inadequate. Eventually, they may have other more sophisticated ones looking at your eye drops. They have some sensors now which can detect sugars just with a contact lens. And then similarly, they have ear sensors which can be put in, which can monitor heart rates and do other things, which will help us to kind of figure out what's going on. The idea ultimately is like a car. You have a dashboard and you have something which basically monitors all your systems in real time and basically tells you how you're doing. If that's patched into your overall history and genetics and goals, we can ideally see in real time what's going on. And you'll have like a fuel gauge to see if you're optimally fueled up. You'll have, for nutrition, you'll see something which tells you if your heart rhythms and heart rates are adequate when you're working out, as well as when you're at rest. You'll see if your sleep is adequate. And with all of that, you'll know what to do. Ultimately, there may be sensors for joints so that you never get into trouble. There may be fall sensors which are already there, but fall prevention sensors which have gyrometers which tell you if you're off kilter, and in the case of elderly with balance issues, whether you're gonna end up with a broken hip. And so it's kind of an exciting time. Companies which design them and the doctors which use them and the health establishment which is backing us up has to be aligned with the consumer, and the consumer ultimately has to have an active real-time dashboard which tells them what's going on with their life. So trend number 2 was wearables and biomonitoring. Trend number 3 is personalization of healthcare. And interestingly, 1 in 3 millennials and 1 in 5 consumers in general wanted to have personalized data feedback. And it's very hard to do that with the given numbers of physicians and allied healthcare at the current time. However, the trend now is that through generative AI, we can basically take all the data and train our AIs and look individually then at each consumer and personalize that data based on their trends. So in other words, if I see where I'm at with my heart rate data, with my consumption of food, with my sleep, with all of that, it will advise us whether we're in limits. And the idea is then to use generative AI in trend number 3 to personalize that data to each individual user. We talked about a little bit this in the biomonitoring, but this takes biomonitoring to another level. So personalization of your healthcare data in a personalized setting with the individual user is something that's very powerful and certainly within the realm of a generative AI. So I see this trend moving very, very quickly. What it means for the companies is they quickly need to adopt AI and train neural networks with healthcare data and then personalize it by having it ring-fenced so that we don't share that anonymous fashion and do it with users who are basically giving their permission to do that. But I see trend number 3 with personalization of healthcare data using generative AI as a very strong trend. Trend number 4 is clinical over clean. This is an important one because it really dictates how you're getting the information out there. Over half of the users who were surveyed suggested that they would have a product which was clinically proven over something that was just clean and natural. Now, look, clean and natural is something they talk about all over the planet, India as well. But what consumers are talking about now is in clinical studies, things have been proven to work with maximum efficacy and don't have issues with any type of side effects. Why is that important? It now is based on not just testimonials or by broad-based claims, but by clinical data which has looked at this scientifically. I think this is a really important one. And I think what is going to happen with companies is that they're going to start to do studies where they give it to patients in either a randomized prospective manner, and they blind it if they can, where the consumer doesn't know which arm they're taking, either the placebo or the regular, or they're going to test it in a randomized prospective fashion where it's not blinded and show clinical efficacy. I know for me, I love to have products which are clinically proven to give you effects and not just from testimonial marketing or from marketing. And honestly, in nutraceuticals, this is a huge problem. First off, because a lot of times they're not clinically tested, and secondly, because there's no real testing as to what's in them. And so I think things are changing now where governments are requiring that products are not adulterated and that they're tested regularly in labs and verified as to what's in them. And then more importantly, not just what's in them, that they're not adulterated, but also the fact that they're effective. And so clinical over clean is a huge trend, number 4. So trend number 5 is the rise of the doctor recommendation. This one's interesting, I found. What consumers are saying is that they want their doctors to recommend which products to use. Now the interesting part is, I'm sure you guys all know, but the IMA as well as the AMA prevent doctors from doing testimonials or from doing product advertising. But what they want is when they say 8 out of 10 doctors recommend using this product. Why is that important? Well, doctors have a very, very distinct responsibility to serve their patients well, and they can't be paid for marketing. And so rather than health washing a product saying that it's healthy, and this is a big thing in India as well as in the US, where the FSSAI in India has come down and saying you can't say it's healthy if it's really not healthy, and that there isn't testing for that. And as well as in the US, the advisory councils have come out and said that it has to have accurate information. Consumers are actually asking for that, where they want what the doctors are telling them to use. So trend number 5 is an important message to the companies that produce these products, that you should have people who have reputations and integrity, and they're saying something from a position of good evidence. And it is a little akin to clinical, but rather than clean in trend number 4, but the difference is who is doing that. It's not just influencers and targeted marketing, but it's actually doctors who have actually practiced and used this product thousands of times on their patients and are recommending it to their patients. And so how that comes out to you is another question altogether, because they can't actively promote one brand over another in a particular area. But I think what is the important take home for this is that consumers are recognizing the presence of that. So that's 5 trends. And we'll go over them right here. We've kind of numbered them and put them up on the screen for you. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on these trends. Now, the bigger question is, how relevant are they to India? And I would say they are relevant in many cases, because in COVID, all of us used the testing kits at home. I don't think we're using them as much for mineral deficiencies and all that in India, owing to the price. And in fact, I don't think people test unless they're ill or they go to a doctor's office. So some of these things won't bear fruit in India. Cost, interpretation, and use may be the issues. But I think in the West, these are what they're finding, and my guess is they'll trickle down to India. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on this video, and as always, if you liked what we say, hit the like button, subscribe to see the next episode, and share this with everyone you know, and see what they say about this. But these will be interesting in 2024, and then as we move forward, how they change. I think generative AI is always a big thing, and everyone's using it in their pitches to get funding. But the real question is, how is that going to make a difference in your life? And I think we've talked a little bit with these trends about how that's going to happen. So I think this is good food for thought for both you and me. Leave your comments below, and we've got the link to the actual report in the description. And so please do take a moment to read it and tell me what you think. Thanks for joining us.